I'm half black. Ain't no such thing as half black. You don't mix white milk with chocolate milk and get half chocolate milk. What I do think this situation calls for is an open conversation on the politics of biracial Africans, because we are living in a time when America right now has an agenda to biracialize the entire Black America. America right now has an agenda to biracialize the entire Black America. They want everyone to look like Steph Curry. They want everyone to look like Mariah Carey. They want everyone to look like Klay Thompson. No disrespect to any of them. No disrespect to any of them. I'm dealing with the politics. Don't take it personal. Don't take it personal. Why would a minority group want to increase the size of the majority group? Why would a minority group, white people, want to increase the numerical size of the people who already outnumber everyone else in the world, Africans? Why would they want to do that? Well, first of all, we have to look at the philosophy of white supremacy. We have to look at the classical foundations of white supremacy. And when you look at the classical foundations of white supremacy, they have always bred black people for their own purposes. Can I get an ashe? If you following me right now, give me a black fist. If you following me, if you understand where I'm going, give me a black fist. White people have always bred black people for their own purposes. Why are we surprised? This is nothing new. They have always bred black people for their own purposes. Even before slavery, when you study the Crusades, the Christian Crusades, the Islamic Jihad into Africa, when you study Alexander the Great, when you study Napoleon Bonaparte, you will find that they had soldiers in those armies who were responsible for the conquest of African peoples, Africans in the Caribbean, Africans in Africa, Australia, Central South Pacific, Central and South America. They had white soldiers whose job was to impregnate the black women. The white soldiers' job was to impregnate the black women, not because they wanted more black people. Genetics is the extermination of Africans. They didn't want more black people, but they needed more soldiers. They needed a numerical majority. And what do you do when you don't have a numerical majority and the women of your community have a problem getting, holding, and keeping babies? You do what? You reproduce with the oppressed woman. You take the black woman and you inject your evil serum into her, and she produces a biologically African child, but not an unapologetically African child. I said the black woman pregnant with the white man's seed will create a biologically African child, but not a psychological African child. So what you have is a baby who has the DNA of the mother, the dominant African DNA, but he has the psychological mind and conditioning and loyalty to the father. And loyalty to the father. And loyalty to the father. That's what's going on in America now. Let's create a virus amongst black people that will mutate and kill itself. Listen to me. They said we're going to create a cancer, a certain type of a people with a certain type of a mentality who will be able to destroy black people without white folks even being around. So they deliberately create the mixed race African as a weapon against the rest of us. They deliberately create the mixed race African as a weapon against the rest of us. But let me clarify. Because right now, some of my mixed race African brothers and sisters are saying to yourself, are you throwing me under the bus, Dr. Umar? I support you. I rock with you. No, I'm not, brothers and sisters. No, I'm not. I'm only throwing you under the bus if you are guilty of loyalty to the oppressor. I'm only throwing you under the bus if you refuse to accept your African racial origin. I didn't say you deny your mother. If your mother is white, that's your mother. You love her. If your father is white, that's your father. You love him. But you must also be clear politically that although this is my father, it's my father. He's your father, but he is not a member of our race. And this is where biracials get confused. This is where biracials get confused. This is where biracials get confused, because what happens a lot of the confusion between the mixed race African and the unmixed African is the fact that the mixed race African wants their mother and father to be exempt. You want your mother and father and white brothers and sisters to be exempt from being included in with all white people, and we will grant no such exemption. We will grant no such exemption. I need my mixed race Africans to hear me. I need my mixed race African brothers and sisters to hear me, because I claim you. If you claim me, I claim you. It's that simple. I don't judge you no differently than I judge any other African. I don't judge you any differently than I judge any other African. It's a two-pronged question for me to vibe with you. Number one, are you biologically black? And number two, are you psychologically black? Do you identify with your race? And if there's any mixed race African out there who says, yes, I know I got a white mother. Yes, I know I got a white father. I love them. I respect them. But that's my personal business. That's my personal business. When it comes to the politics of liberation, I will stand shoulder to shoulder with Dr. Johnson. If that's you, I have no problem with you. One of the greatest Pan-Africanists who ever lived. One of the greatest, two of the greatest Pan-Africanists who ever lived. Bishop Henry McNeil Turner. Bishop Henry McNeil Turner. The first black chaplain in the U.S. Army. One of the first blacks elected to public office during Reconstruction. The black man who called the United States flag a filthy rag. The black man who said God was black. The first man to say God was black was of mixed race. So I don't have no problem with you having a white mom, white dad, because you're not responsible for how you get here. But I need biracial Africans to understand that you are obligated to live the same code as all other Pan-Africanists. And that code is, you do not date white. You do not lay white. You do not sleep white. You do not impregnate or be impregnated by white. You will marry black. You are obligated to the same code. And the fact that your mother is white or your father is white does not exempt you from being totally 100% committed to the freedom struggle. In other words, you have to develop the courage and the commitment. Mixed race Africans have to develop the courage and the commitment to tell mommy and daddy, I love you, but you are white. And because you are not a member of the African family, you cannot come to this meeting. Because you are not a member of the African family, you cannot participate in this struggle. Because you are not a member of the African family, I love you, but my love for you is personal. African liberation is political. And I cannot betray my people by letting you in, mommy and daddy, because although you love me, mommy and daddy, although you love me, there is no proof that you love all black people. Although you love me, white mom, white daddy, there's no proof that you love all black people. And because of that, I cannot risk the liberation struggle of my people because of my personal petty emotions about my mother and father. And that's facts. And that's facts. See, for Drake to put on that blackface, for Drake to put on that blackface, for Drake to put on that blackface, it suggests to some degree that he really did not recognize himself to be black himself. See, for a mixed race African to paint his face black, it says subconsciously that I'm a few degrees different from the rest of them. And that's the problem with the biracial consciousness, because it brainwashes mixed race Africans into thinking that they're not black, but at the same time, you'll never be accepted as white. So you end up living your whole life as a people in between, because you don't want to be what you are, and you'll never be accepted by what you want to be. And what I find so ironic, about, see, let me back up. So we talked about the two questions. Are you biologically black and are you psychologically black? That goes for you if you're mixed race. That goes for you if you're blue, black, purple. That goes for you if you're hot peanut butter. That goes for you if you're butter almond, if you're caramel, if you're mocha latte, if you're butter pecan, if you're syrup, if you're brown sugar. I don't care what complexion you are. You must be biologically and psychologically African. You must be biologically and psychologically African. And if you are both, I have no problem with you. If you biracial, you want to be in my course, but you better be biologically African and psychologically African, I will consider you. I will consider you. But the issue is we're dealing with the fact that you are split psychologically. Nobody's split about who you are but you. See, whenever America wants to recruit blacks against blacks, whenever America wants to recruit blacks against blacks, the first thing it does, and you can study your history, whenever white folk want to recruit black folks to be used against other black folk, they create a new racial category. Facts. Facts. Study history. In the 1970s, when African Puerto Ricans and African Cubans and Africans from Dominican Republic came to America, they didn't want to be labeled with African Americans. They were calling themselves white. Blue, black, purple Africans with nappy hair were showing up from Cuba and Puerto Rico, calling themselves white. Some of them still do it today. And America said you cannot call yourself white because you got to be Anglo-Saxon to be white. They didn't even let the Irish and the Jew and the Italian be white until 1940. So in 1970, the United States government created a new category for blacks called Hispanic. In 1970, the United States government created a new category for blacks called Hispanic. So anybody with African blood who was too ashamed to be black, I said anybody with African blood who was too ashamed to be black could call themselves Hispanic instead of African. And we still got a lot of African Puerto Ricans and Afro-Cubans who still want to call themselves white. They hate their black blood, but you practice in African religion. You hate your African heritage, but you practice in Ifa, and you practice in Santeria, and you practice in Palo, and you practice in Voodoo, and you practice in Lukumi. How the hell are you going to take our religion but say you don't belong to us? Give us our religion back. Anybody in the Caribbean who practice an African religion and got a problem calling themselves African, give us our goddamn religion back and go with your oppressor. And go with your oppressor. Oh, yes, my brother. It is that simple. Oh, it's very simple. It is extremely simple. You are either with me or you are against me. It's very simple. This whole thing is very simple. The message to the biracial Africans is it's time for you to come on home and claim your heritage. Claim your great African divinity. And the reason why it's time for you to do that is because they will never accept you anyway. What I find most interesting about biracial Africans is you will go out of your way to let the world know that you are mixed race. You will go out of your way to let the world know you are mixed race. But you fail to understand that the white man has a one-drop rule. Listen to me, biracial Africans. Listen up. What the hell is a biracial African? See how they play these games? Half black. No such thing as being half black. African DNA dominates all of the DNA. Once you are mixed with us, you are us biologically. But I will never claim you until you become psychologically African. Ain't no half black. How you going to take dominant genes and mix it with recessive genes and get half black? If the gene is recessive, which means it cannot stand the power or resistance of the dominant gene, then the dominant gene takes over the recessive and that baby becomes an African. I'm half black. Ain't no such thing as half black. You don't mix white milk with chocolate milk and get half chocolate milk. When you ever see half chocolate milk? What kind of milk is this? It's half chocolate. Ain't no such thing as half chocolate. It's either chocolate or it ain't. It's either chocolate or it ain't. Everything is defined by the majority DNA. Everything is defined by the majority DNA. I just looked at my phone. Guess what time it is? I just looked at my phone. Guess what time it is? It was 11:11. Perfect synchronicity. That means the universe is in alignment with my message this morning. That means the universe is in alignment with my message. What happened on 11:11? What happened on 11:11? The great black prophet of Pan-African liberation, Reverend Nat Turner, on my birthday, and on George Jackson's martyrdom day, August the 21st, Nat Turner and George Jackson. On November the 11th, 1831, Prophet Nat Turner was executed. 11:11, because Nat Turner rides with the prince.